to Terry Lawson Photography Conversations. It's October 7th, 2013, and today we're in Expressionz Cafe, located on 70th Avenue, just west of 99th Street, here at Edmonton, Alberta. And we have the pleasure of talking with Karyn Stirling, the founder of the cafe. We're sitting at a comfortable table, sipping a cup of wonderful coffee near the open kitchen, which is right by the door when you walk in. Surrounding us on the walls and adding to the comfort of the space are amazing works by many local artists. What I love about coming here, especially at this time of day, is the warm, country, homey feel you get with the smells of the food cooking in the kitchen, the sound of the cooks getting the meals ready for lunch, and of course the amazing garden outside the entrance full of vegetables that are used in many of the recipes at the cafe. As I mentioned, Karyn is the founder of the cafe, which began its journey in December 1999 on 118th Avenue in the area that is now called the Arts on the Avenue district. The stories of the road traveled by the cafe from there to its current location, as well as Karyn's own story, are both interesting and filled with many ups and downs. But those two journeys seem to have arrived at the same great place, an industrial area not far from White Avenue on the south side of Edmonton. So sit back and maybe grab your own cup of coffee and join me in my conversation with Karyn. So welcome to Conversations, Karyn.
Thank you.
I'd like to begin by going back 14 years and ask you what inspired you to make the decision to open up Expressionz.
It's a long time ago. It was inspired mostly by being in a job that I just was, it was at an end, and I was feeling very blocked in my life and, not happy, not creative, not anything, just kind of showing up and making some money.
Yeah.
And I started to realize that my daughter, at the time, just a young one too, was looking at me, watching me, and I was busy telling her how to be herself and go after her dreams and do everything she wanted to do, but there I was modeling the exact opposite. And I think that's probably a generational thing for everybody, that we want the best for our next kids coming along, but we're not showing them how to do it, and we're not being it for ourselves. So anyways, I finally just decided that enough was enough, and my health was at risk at the time. I had a situation going on health-wise that had to be dealt with, and I just decided to take a leap. That I finally made a decision I was more worth finding out what an alternative could be than, miserably, slowly taking myself to a death in a job I didn't like and wasn't serving me anymore. So I just took a big leap, and I spent about 6 months just kind of doing some deep internal research, and the vision just kind of started to come. I started to find myself again through the arts, and the vision came through that.
So what did you conclude? What was your vision?
Well, for myself, and having to do with the illness, I was diagnosed with a bit of cervical cancer. It was the beginnings of cervical cancer. And I thought to myself, how have I created this, and how do I have to uncreate this? How do I get back to health? And so I had gone in through the doctors, and they had given me the basics. We need to cut you apart and do this and put you back together again. And I decided that just wasn't right. And so I started to look deep inside, and I found out that I was an artist and a musician and a this and a that, and started to follow all of those lines of creativity. And lo and behold, many years later, not right away, it was a long journey, and it was certainly a spiritual and psychological study of myself as well, too, that finally led to healing. But there was no medical intervention. And so what I wanted Expressionz to be able to do was provide the opportunity for community to at least remember creativity. I didn't want to be the teacher. I didn't want to, create all the programming that is already existing out there. There's some amazing programming.
Right.
But I wanted to provide a space and a place and a safe place, a non-competitive place where people could just simply come again and experience the arts. And from as simple as, seeing a picture on the wall, to having an awesome conversation that stimulates inspiration again, to smelling healthy smells coming out of the kitchen, to listening to somebody's, journey on the musical stage. And and then beyond as well, like to take it to other levels too, where it provided space for those who wanted to pursue it seriously.
Yeah.
But to bring it back into everybody's everyday life again, just as something necessary for health and well-being.
How do you think that in today's world, where we're inundated by technology, how do you think that vision can, let's say, compete with that when there is so much emphasis now on technology?
I don't think it needs to compete with it. I think it needs to separate itself again from it first. And because technology is creative as well, it comes down to how do we use it and why do we use it. And I think that creativity I'm talking about brings us back to a why again. Why am I doing this? You know, why would I follow this path and not that path? And does it bring joy? Does it bring a sense of well-being to community? Am I serving the world somehow, or am I just taking from it? So I think by getting each person back in touch with their own self again and becoming solid in who they are and why they do things, and to be able to use their imagination again, because it doesn't just mean the arts, it just means creative thinking and inspirational living. So I think that once we get that, we can take that into our technology and make our technology serve us.
Yeah, I think the word I like to use when I talk about this with other people is balance. I think both can exist in their own right. You need to have each to have an appreciation for the other also.
I think so.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
So here we are in Expressionz. What typically happens here during the week?
Mostly during the week. The cafe is open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And then beyond that, we rent the space out in the evenings and on the weekends. And we have the one big room here that we're sitting in, the cafe itself, and we have some smaller rooms upstairs that we rent out too. So typical day in here is the staff arriving and having a great chat and
I could hear them
laughing
in the kitchen
and
all the
talking
time.
and finding out what happened over the weekend and talking about the events that happened here over the weekend. We do a lot of just casual and informal work. There's always work being done, but it's fun, and it's done in a manner that is, I think, natural rather than a pushing, productive, must get answers, must have. You know, we laugh and we talk, and we don't get stuck and concerned about what went wrong or what we didn't do. We see it, we look at it, and we figure out what to do next time, and we move on. You know, so that's kind of our typical days all day long. We just have fun, and I think that really makes its way into the food and into the people who are here. They really pick up on that. One of the most common responses we get from somebody being here is like, what great vibes it has here, what great energy. And I think that's true. I think it just stands for itself that people are happy here. And so I think the vision is doing what it's supposed to do. It's touching people.
Yeah, and so you think that those happenings are contributing to the community that you've been trying to connect
without
with.
really having to do anything but have fun ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And that's the whole purpose again. Is,
Yeah.
You know, back to, am I doing it? Am I modeling that existence? You know, and I think we are, and I think that people just kind of come in and they see it, and they leave with a bit of a lighter feeling as well. And maybe they think about their life differently, maybe they don't, but they felt it, and it's got them one way or another. You know,
So
maybe
that's
it's just a
another,
seed.
yeah, that's another thing you're trying to give people. I'm sure that you want them to leave here with some kind of a feeling that, as you're saying, contentment, part of the energy, if you wish.
And to include them. I think when you go into a restaurant, and there's nothing wrong with this, it's just a difference of, you know, we're just a different venue. But when you go into a restaurant, or most places, you're by yourself. Or maybe you're with a friend, but you're in your own little corner. You're not, you know, involved in the happenings of the actual cafe or the restaurant. Here is a different story. My job is to get out there and to meet everybody that comes in and chit-chat with them. And just by nature, I tend to delve deep into somebody's life very quickly and ask them some, you know, core questions, not in an invasive way, but just a thought-provoking way. And I think they like that. And I think they like the opportunity to And sometimes it's maybe surprising to them what answers come out of them, but
Yeah.
they quickly become a part of the cafe.
Yeah.
It's a great big recipe, and they're an ingredient in there that we stir in, and
Yeah.
without them knowing it, and they want to come back, and they want to be a part of that. And it doesn't mean they become volunteers. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but they just like to be around that and like to be a part of that, and they become a character in our big play.
I like your business card. A lot of people say president or owner. Yours says chief gopher.
Yeah.
I like that.
Doesn't even capture it all. But yeah, that's kind of what I am. It's from the bottom of the ladder up, right? Always kind of doing whatever needs to be done.
Right.
And I think I need to do that in the sense of leadership too, right? Again, it's an example and a model of, and one of the parts of my healing was not to take myself seriously, not to take myself or my world or anything that seriously. And that doesn't mean that I don't think clearly and strongly of it, but I don't need to get wrapped up in titles and education behind my name or any of those things, right? Learning comes from sitting across the table from somebody, and there's not one of us that can't say we've had a lifetime of learning if we're up and over the 30 mark at least,
Yes,
if not
exactly.
earlier. There's many young wise people, and it comes from opening and experienced life and laughing and engaging rather than being all stuffy and stuck and defined by the labels that are placed upon us or that we place upon ourselves, right?
So you touched at the beginning about you becoming involved in arts. What sort of things did you pursue?
Well, mostly I guess I focused a little more musically. I started playing with a group called The Time Flies, and I think that was a big part of my healing too. It was it started out as myself and another lady as a duo, and soon became a trio, and eventually a 5-piece band. And we wrote music for children and families, but it was adult music. It was jazz and blues and rock and folk and this and that, and the lyrics were kind of Disney-like, if you will. They had secret jokes for the adults, and the children loved it and seniors loved it, and it was a really fun time to express and be silly and not have an agenda and just play and dress up even. We had theatrical skits and all kinds of stuff. So that was kind of a really big part of my learning how to be creative again, being around children and just kind of giving. They're actually the hardest audience.
Oh, I know.
They'll tell you if you're too loud, off key, don't like you, all of those good things. So, it tested every part of myself that wanted to be insecure and proper, and they just don't allow that, right? I had to find a way to let go of all that and be whatever,
Right.
be anything, right?
Yeah. Now I notice you're a non-profit organization. So what was the decision behind doing that instead of just owning a restaurant, let's say?
Well, it started off as a proprietorship, and that was okay. But what was quickly obvious to me was that it was a community venture. It was something that was not for me, but was for everyone. And taking a look at restaurants in general, and restaurants and arts groups in general, they're not big money makers, let's say. And I certainly didn't have a big roll of money to keep it all going either. I put in as much as I could, but it was obvious that it needed more. And so after my first 3 years of business, we unfortunately got kicked out of our building. Everyone got kicked out of our building. And so it left us homeless for a while. So it gave me an opportunity at that point to relook at things and see what I could do differently for it. It had a lot of volunteers. Everybody that came in there wanted to help and wanted to support it in many ways. So I needed to find an entity that could support that as well better. Not that the proprietorship didn't allow for that, but I think in people's minds they see if it's a business, they don't seem to think of it in the same way rather than a not-for-profit. So I did some searching, and I came up with an entity that was called a Part 9 company. which allowed me to continue to own it and direct it and lead the vision without there being a changeover of boards of directors and membership. It left the vision control with me, but it allowed it to become a not-for-profit just under the Corporations Act, which simply means that anything that it makes over and above what it pays for staff and overhead goes directly back into the company. The shares are valued at zero rather than having an actual dollar value to them. So it seems to be, so far, a great entity. It allows it to operate and think like a business, make money like a business would as best as it can. Its goal is to be sustainable, but it also is able to seek out grants and subsidize at least its startup. That's probably the hardest part, right? So I think the long run, we're on track for being sustainable by 5 years, which any business takes that.
Yeah, it's usually 5.
Yeah, so we're feeling pretty good about that. We still need to pull our socks up, and we'd love more people to know about us and more support. That's probably the main thing that we're lacking at this point, is the ability to get our word out there and let people know we're here, because as soon as they do find us, they come.
Right.
So, but yeah, and so then it allows for also other people to be involved, and I've set up a steering committee. It's an informal board of directors that helps me. They're my mentors. They're my go-to people, because I don't, I try to approach this whole thing in the sense of I know nothing.
Right.
And that allows two things. Nobody holds me completely responsible for being the ultimate one, but you can learn then too, right? I don't know everything, and there are people who are business experts and who are marketing and advertising experts, et cetera, et cetera. My expertise is a gopher, as I explain on my business card, right?
Yeah. Now, do you use a volunteer base to help you with
We
the
have
running
a combination. We have staff and volunteers. But we do staff it completely as a business would.
Okay.
And what we found, there are some other volunteer organizations that run 100% volunteers, and they are successful and do well. And I would love to know their ingredients, but I know the work that goes into organizing and running volunteers. And one of the main things we don't have is a volunteer coordinator. And I think that's key if you are going to operate as a complete volunteer group. We've gone the other way. We look at it as a business, and there are key positions within a business that need somebody to be accountable to that, be responsible for that. And I think it's hard for volunteers to be that. You can only expect so much from somebody who's there to learn and have fun and is not drawing a wage. So we've identified key positions within the organization that need somebody there to grow it, to develop that position, to develop and maybe marketing, and definitely in the kitchen. And then we subsidize it through volunteers. So quite often cafe help, or sometimes office help, cleaning help, things like that, right?
Yeah.
More and more as we go along, and more as people find out who we are, and we become better organized and able to say, you can do that job, and this is what it entails. In the beginning, it was a little bit more of a roller coaster ride, and just hanging on, and trying to keep the boat in the water.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what methods do you use to promote Expressionz? I assume you probably got a web page.
We have a website,
certainly helps in.
That one is, the web page is great as people get to know about you.
Right.
Right.
That's true.
They tend to use it more as a tool for what's happening here, I think, rather than just accidentally discovering us.
Right.
But that's definitely a key. We use that. We use Facebook. We have Twitter. We have hired. That's one thing that we did hire for, just very part-time. We hire someone to concentrate on that and keep that word going out. So I think our main, again, with a limited budget, our main thing was word of mouth, and how do we get that out there? Probably one of the second best thing is that as a rental place, every time something new happens here, which is basically, at least 4 times a week,
Right.
a whole new audience discovers
Exactly.
us. So that's our second main way of being heard. As we begin to develop some more programming, which we're doing now, some concerts and things like that, CKUA has got on board with us to be a sponsor for our concert series, and that's helped immensely.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
And CJSR too, we're grateful to both of them, and hopefully that we're also turning an audience over to them too to discover. So those are kind of our main ways. We do a little bit of flyer advertising and paper advertising in some key spots like that, but
Right.
mostly word of mouth.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and that's quite powerful.
It is. It builds a
Especially-
strong foundation.
Yeah, especially the because of the things that you do here as far as the rentals and the concerts, you know, I mean, as you say, whenever something like that happens, you're opening up this world to a whole new group of people.
And their words are always, I had no idea you existed.
That's right.
Right? And it's great. It's like they found a big gem at the end of the road, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, those are kind of our main routes, and they're working well. It's a slower grow, but it's a stable grow. It's a solid grow. Every person comes back, and you see that when you're a small place. You see that, hey, you've been here before. And, hey, you're here every week now, and and they come bringing friends, and you can tell that they're interested to help. And maybe that's our main source of volunteers. It's our marketing force. They're out there, pulling people in for us and introducing them to the place. And that's solid advertising as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
So I'd just like to touch on maybe one last thing, and that is sort of a two-part response. First, how do you feel about where you are right now? And where do you see Expression going in the future?
Well, you're asking at a good time, because we've just reached a point. We just celebrated our 3rd birthday, and I think it's the first time that we feel okay. We've made it over the major humps along the way, and we feel good that we understand our business now. Things have flow and character and run more smoothly. We know what to expect. Although every event is completely different and we learn something new each time, we do have a grasp. It's not overwhelming like it was in the beginning along the way. It was a lot going on and a huge learning curve. And so we feel really good about where we are. We're matching our projections and well on our way to becoming stable. We still need to increase our income somehow along the way, but we will seemingly do it by 5 years. So that's good. If we can do it sooner, then even better. And where are we going from here? Well, for the first time in 3 years, our building is full. Like I said earlier, we have 3 rooms that we have available for rent, and in the beginning they were all for rent by the day, by the hour. Now we use just our main hall as a by the day, by the hour event-oriented space, and we have the 2 upstairs that are permanent tenants, and we have 4 smaller offices upstairs that are permanent tenants as well.
Oh, that's great.
So we have a really solid core of people here that not only are they independent businesses paying our rent, they are like us, they're like-minded, and they get involved and they use our services and they fit in really well. So we're a community of communities in here, and that's growing more and more. They're all arts-oriented themselves, or community-oriented at least, culturally oriented. So we're on the verge of needing to expand again, and that is our vision for the next 2 years, is to figure out how to take over the second half of our warehouse. We currently have 6,600 square feet of space, and we're looking to take over another 6,600 square feet of space.
Wow.
So, right now we're sitting in a perfect space, although we don't have the money sitting there yet. We have our building full. We have a waiting list of people who are interested to come and be part of this now, who can help us support that second side. It's realistic to say we want to go there, and hopefully, some investors, or how we decide we can make it through to this, they'll see that too, that it's the business is right there waiting to happen. So we're looking at both leasing the second half temporarily, but our whole vision is to be able to put in an offer to buy the building and the property right next door. Wow. Mostly because as we expand and invest into the leasehold, it's a lot of money going into lease, and so if there's a way to purchase it, then that's kind of what we're looking at now, and that'll be my job over the next 6 months or so, is to establish a steering committee that can help make that happen, and really sit back and take a look at what are the components that need to take place again through development and zoning and so on and so forth, and get all the ducks in a row again before we go. So if we've learned anything, it's relax and go slow and one step at a time, and the universe literally unfolds as it should. Things show up at the exact right moment, and if you can train yourself not to rush ahead and bang your head against the brick wall, then you can enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
It'll work out either way if it's meant to, but
So all the things you've learned over these 14 years is incredible.
it is, to me at least.
I know.
It's incredible to me. It's, I wouldn't, there's been some extremely challenging and stressful moments, but I wouldn't give it up.
You're still standing on 2
I'm
feet.
still standing, and I feel again like it's the first time that I feel good standing for a while and feel like I have a grip on the vision and on my life, and I don't have to stress and worry anymore.
Yeah.
There was a time for that, and if I would have known how not to at the beginning, I wouldn't have, but I didn't know that then, and so did. But I realize now I didn't have to.
Yeah.
It made it, and I would like to be able to, share what I've learned and be able to help others. I think this is a good model of an existence that others can follow, that maybe will help either community groups or arts groups look at how they can run venues or run things in a different way that maybe is a little more business minded than not-for-profit minded.
Right.
The goal is to be, for the vision of not-for-profit, but we need to learn how to be stable and looking after ourselves. Not everything can within those areas. Sometimes we just need to give to them and subsidize it. But I think we can, as creative people, there's a lot we can do, and this is one way to do it, and it's working. And if it ends up being successful, then others can follow that path and create similar models in their own way.
Well, Karyn, I want to thank you for taking a few moments from your day and your
pleasure.
chief gopher role.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's really been nice talking to you, and I'm so excited that there is so much positive vibe in this place, and it's doing for you what you want it to do for us. So,
yeah, it healed me, and hopefully it'll just inspire. That's all it needs to do.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Good question.
You have been listening to Terry Lawson Photography Conversations, interviews with local photographers and those involved in the art scene. I hope you can join me for my next conversation.